All right. Hey, everybody. David here with Just High Level. And there was a big news release today by the FCC. Basically, what it says is it's making AI generated voices in robocalls illegal. Did that have something to do with Taylor Swift? Anyways, we're going to take a look at what the release was, what's in it, how it affects kind of the agency business. Maybe you've used robocalls before in the past. And there's one particular company, Air AI, that might be out of business now, but let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's take a look at the news release. So let's go ahead but first off, here's the page for the release. You can see FCC makes AI generated voices and robocalls illegal. All right, and I've gone through this and I've highlighted some, and I'm going to throw them up on the screen as we're going over this. But essentially, state AGs will now have new tools to go after voice cloning scams. So I'm going to interject here with a couple of my own opinions as we go through this, but I want to give it all the facts and give you an understanding of what caused the FCC to go ahead and release this and kind of what it means. So if you've been in marketing before, maybe you've sent out automatic dialers in the past, and there's companies now that have been popping up that have been very good. I know we've tried a few of them, and while you can still tell that it's AI, you can hear the pauses and all of that inside the voices. It's good enough that some people can't. If you're not up to date with kind of everything that's going on in this world, like you could easily go on a 15-minute conversation with an AI bot and not know it. Like they're good. I don't want to say that they're the best that it could ever be. Like obviously it's getting better, but it sounds like a voice with inflection that is interested in what you're saying. It's not just the regular robocall that you can kind of, as soon as you hear it. So basically, I went through and highlighted, I think, the important parts. Makes voice cloning technology used in common robocall scams targeting consumers illegal. And it goes on to say this would give state attorneys general across the country new tools to go after bad actors behind the nefarious robocalls. Now, my first thought on that is how. I don't know how they go about stopping calls as they're being made without some type of like privacy things going on there. Like I'm not 100% sure on what tools they have access to, but in order to stop a call before it happens, it's like that one movie where they're stopping crimes before they're committed. So it's a weird thing, but state attorney generals will now have new tools to crack down on scams and ensure the public is protected from fraud and misinformation. Yes, I think consumers should be protected from fraud. As far as misinformation, I agree with that too. The question there is, how do you know what misinformation is, especially in nowadays? It sounds political when you say misinformation. But the other thing is there are some practical uses of AI generated calls, especially in marketing. And I'm trying to play both sides of this. Like I understand there are scams out there, but there are legitimate things as well that I know for our needs when we were looking at AI to just do outbound dialers. And that was something that we didn't have to have a body there to do all day. Like we could just have this robo dialer do it for us. We ended up not doing it, but we did look into it. So, and that was nothing nefarious. That was nothing fraudulent. It was the same information that we would be saying if we were to make a call to somebody. But moving on. Similarly, the FCC also asked about how AI can help us with pattern recognition so that we turn this technology into a force for good that can recognize illegal robocalls before they ever reach consumers on the phone. And this was what I was just talking about. How? And this seems like we're going to use, like, you shouldn't use this. We should. It's a weird argument to have for something like that. Like, we're going to fight this with the thing that we're trying to fight this with. Moving on, it restricts the making of telemarketing calls and the use of automatic telephone dialing systems and artificial or pre-recorded voice messages. Again, this goes back to what is considered an artificial voice. So when you've picked up, and the automatic telephone dialing as well, when you've picked up a phone from a telemarketer, every once in a while you'll pick it up, say hello, and then you'll hear it. Ding! And then a person comes on the other line. It is just I don't know who developed this system. Maybe it's there for legal reasons, but I know as soon as I hear that ding, it's time to hang up. This is an automatic dialer that is just waiting for someone to pick up the phone. And then as soon as it does, another person there is there to go ahead and take that call. And what is artificial? So what is like when you get a robot on the other side of like a legitimate, not AI, has no real intelligence, but it is a robot on the other side. Is that illegal too? So it goes on. They want to fine robocallers. Again, how? Telephone carriers facilitating illegal robocalls. So, I mean, I guess this would go on to like the AT&Ts, the Verizons. I don't know if Twilio could be involved in this, but they might be taking some type of action as well. In addition, TCPA allows individual consumers or an organization to bring lawsuits against robocallers in court. Again, my question is how, and later on in this, it goes to tell as long as the consumer has opted in for it, which I don't know anybody that would opt in to talk to an AI bot and have the bot call them. So it's like, yes, you can opt into it, but I don't think realistically nobody's going to opt in. The only situation I could see is if it's built into a contract, like something like Amazon, when they send you an email and say update to terms and conditions, and you never even read it, you click off on it. And there's a lot of contracts that are like this that are 72 pages long. You're never going to read all of it. And somewhere in there, it says, I agree to accept robocalls from you. So outside of that, I don't think anybody's checking a box saying, yes, I accept robocalls. So maybe that's a loophole, maybe that's a workaround, but I don't know how it could be. And then last thing in the press release, establish partnerships with law enforcement agencies in states across the country to identify and eliminate illegal robocalls. It seems like an overstepping of boundaries, but technically it is illegal to certain telemarketing calls. I don't think I'm the only one. I still get a bunch of telemarketing calls. So I don't know how they stop that. Now, getting into the actual documents of it, and I'm just going to read the highlights of it. And so it starts off, in the matter of implications of artificial intelligence technologies on protecting consumers from unwanted robocalls and robotext. So it starts off in the introduction, AI technologies that can generate content such as artificial voice communications can be beneficial, but also pose new challenges to consumers. That is true. Like if people are building voices to sound like celebrities or family members to take advantage of people, like that's wrong. That is totally wrong. Like you just shouldn't use that for any kind of monetary gain, I would say. It goes on. The use of artificial or pre-recorded voice encompasses current AI technologies that generate human voices. Again, that goes back into they're trying to regenerate humans that already exist. So if somebody tried to make Taylor Swift call you and say, hey, I have tickets to my next show that are just for you, that's wrong. And I totally agree with the precedent that they're trying to set when it comes to that. And it also this is where it has the requirement of prior express consent of the called party to initiate such calls, absent an emergency purpose or exemption. I would love to hear what they think the emergency purpose of one of these would be, and also an exemption, because in this particular document, it doesn't go over exemptions. It goes on to say, emulating human speech and interacting with consumers as though they were live human callers when generating voice and text messages. And this is where our friends over at Air AI, I feel so bad for them because they legitimately spent so much time on this, and I think it's all for naught now. I think it's done. And it goes on to artificial or pre-recorded voice encompass current AI technologies that resemble human voices and or generate call content using pre-recorded voices. Therefore, callers must obtain prior express consent from the called party before making a call that utilizes artificial or pre-recorded voices simulated or generated through AI technology. And from my understanding, this is only for outbound calls. So if you are specifically using an outbound dialer with an AI technology that is meant to make somebody else think that it's a person on the other side, because it never talks about like the actual robo voice calls. I don't think they consider that an AI or pre-recorded voice. The one example that comes to mind is when I call the bank and I'm calling Chase and I cannot talk to a real person to save my life, and they're just like, oh no, I'm super smart. Go ahead and say what you want and I should be able to help you. And it's like, no, you don't know exactly what I want. Like, I just want to talk to a person that can make a decision. Just let me know what you want. I can make decisions as well. And you get the runaround. So I'm assuming it's only for outbound because they don't want to have these companies hire people to actually take your calls. To be clear, we understand that not all AI generated calls may be deceptive or annoy all consumers, but the TCPA's demand fully apply to those calls, and thus consumers can themselves choose whether to receive them. Again, I don't think any consumer is going to say, yes, let's have AI call me. That market's dead. Intent of TCPA and protects consumers from unwanted and illegal pre-recorded artificial voices. Our conclusion is also consistent with the Commission's soundboard ruling, which confirmed that the TCPA applies to any telephone call that is initiated using an artificial or pre-recorded voice message. So that's somebody that is sitting there waiting for your response, and it's like, oh, they responded negatively. Negative response. So that's kind of what that is encompassing there. And then number 9 on here is prior express consent, which again, I can't see that ever becoming a thing. Must provide certain identification and disclosure information from the entity responsible for initiating the call. In every case where the artificial or pre-recorded voice message includes or introduces an advertisement or constitutes telemarketing, it must also offer specified opt-out methods for the called party to make a request to stop calling that telephone number. These requirements are applicable to any AI technology that initiates any outbound telephone call using an artificial or pre-recorded voice to consumers. That is all AI. That's AI to a T. Again, like as soon as if you get an AI call and there's like, you can opt out of this at any time, just say opt out. As soon as you give somebody that option, it's opt out. They didn't want to pick up your phone call anyways. And then we get into statements from chair people. So statement of Chairman Jessica Rosenworcel. I think I got that right. But she goes on to say, already we see this happening with Tom Hanks hawking dental plans online. A vile video featuring Taylor Swift and calls from candidates for political office that are designed to confuse us about where and when to vote. So this is where, when it said misinformation in that original press release, this is where it gets kind of weird because it is politicized. Like, misinformation is a politicized word now. And when you get politicians, they're not necessarily looking out for the consumer. It's going to be under the veil of the consumer, which, yes, you should protect the consumer. But based off of this, when and where to vote, political office, like they know how it can affect them. And I think that's what they're going for. And they're using Taylor Swift to their benefit. She goes on to say, but just as important, we asked about how AI can help us with pattern recognition so that we turn this technology into a force for good that can recognize illegal robocalls before they ever even reach us on the phone. Again, we should use this power, not you. And the next statement from Commissioner Jeffrey Starks. And in the first paragraph, to threaten election integrity, harm public safety, and prey on the most vulnerable members of society. So this is affecting an industry that is nowhere near what this gentleman is even talking about in why he is for it. It should be noted that this was unanimously passed. Like, there wasn't any pushback to this, which I agree for all the reasons that are in here. It just kind of sucks that something that can affect an industry is passed. Totally get why they need to regulate this stuff, and this is kind of the first step. You're asking people that don't know a whole lot about AI to make rules about AI. The whole of government is rightly focused on whether and how to regulate AI. And I can tell you the whole of government doesn't know enough about AI to be able to regulate it. I don't know that they're the ones that should be making this decisions. Hopefully they have good intentioned people advising them on what to do when it comes to the issue of AI. Yeah, hopefully they do. Legislators have introduced bills addressing the use of AI in dozens of contexts, including election integrity. So that he never really brings up protecting consumers, and I think most of the people in government aren't going to be talking about protecting consumers. It's going to be the integrity stuff and protecting elections, as it should be. Like, this is still super important stuff. Any type of AI technology that generates human voice should be considered an artificial voice for purposes of the TCPA. And I agree with that. And lastly, Commissioner Anna M. Gomez. And she got the least amount in here, but one thing she did say: artificial or pre-recorded voice to make robocalls and robotext without prior express consent or the receiving of party includes AI technologies that generate human voices, such as voice cloning. This declaratory ruling is particularly important to prevent fraudsters from using AI to prey on consumers. And I agree. Anyways, guys, there's a lot to unpack here. I will say the one thing that I think this release has done is saved the telemarketing industry. So there is a lot of people that have positions of telemarketing that do outbound dialing, that take calls, and that is how they make their living. This bill, I think, has protected that market, literally saving tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs. So I can get behind that, even if this has some negative effects towards people that are in marketing. I think overall that's a positive. People should get paid for doing outbound dialing and taking calls and doing all that. And you still paid for AI, but it's still intruding on that business. But anyways, guys, this is a little bit outside of what my normal videos are, but I thought it was important because it does affect the Go High Level community in one way or another. And I know some people are already utilizing AI software, and I think it's up to us to let people know when, there are big changes like this. And I expect Go High Level to put out a release as well. But what are your thoughts on this? I don't usually ask for feedback on these, but if you have any feedback, throw it down below because this is an interesting topic. So until next time, guys.